Not yet. All right, welcome everyone. We're live. Welcome to the last session of the day. This is going to be a Juju Q&A and Office Hours. If you're not familiar with the Office Hours concept, basically a bunch of us sit around and answer questions that anyone may have. We can cover anything from how to get Juju working on a certain cloud, or configuring Juju, or learning Juju's new features, basic Juju usage, advanced Juju usage, and we have the whole crowd here to answer your questions.
Strategies for modeling your infrastructure in Juju.
Look at that. Look at that. He's already started. He's already used the word modeling, and we're less than a minute in. So, awesome. So since the topic's pretty much open-ended, Marco was sitting considering showing us the latest from Trunk.
Well, from the Alpha 1 release today. We have an Alpha 1 release today. Like, they are steamrolling this next release. It's awesome.
Yeah. And or if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt us at any time, or just ask them, or do that kind of stuff. But it looks like the service status stuff. I'm just looking over the release notes here. We have the service status stuff landing. Do you kind of want to start with that, maybe? Because it's so awesome and.
Yes. We should totally
I've been waiting so long for this. Yeah.
But I have to do a couple things to get to that because I kind of goofed on when I deployed this environment. So we should talk about something else for the next 3 minutes.
Okay, sure. So you go ahead and do that. I'm gonna open the mailing list here, see if there's anything that any main discussions in the community that we should talk about. Of course, Nate asked if there's anything that core developers could do as far as improving documentation. Of course, Nick and I had some strong opinions on things they should improve there. Mainly, I like to see features being documented during development as opposed to the very end. Let's see. We've had Marco. You announced a little plug-in or a web service to visualize bundles. This kind of lets you draw things that look like they're in the Juju GUI, but they're not, right? Like if you want to embed.
Oh yeah,
embed somewhere. Yeah.
We could talk real briefly about that.
Sure.
This is just if you're writing a blog post, or you're building a slide deck, or you want to show deployments. If you have a bundle file, you can feed it to this web service, and it will produce an SVG that you can embed either in a blog post or anywhere you want, basically. So it's just a static visual representation of what a bundle would look like on a Juju GUI canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's svg.juju.solutions. And the instructions are on that page on how to use it.
All right, I will add that to the URL. svg.juju.solutions. And I will check that out. Cool. Other stuff on the list while we wait for that to deploy is I started a thread on how to get Juju started up on GCE, Google's compute engine. I had some trouble initially at first. First of all, I had to regenerate my JSON file in my Google little dashboard that they have, and the initial JSON that was created when I created the project didn't work. So you're looking for a JSON, it will have a key in it. That's kind of like what gave it away. Other than that, it was pretty straightforward. There were some fixes that we're going to make to the documentation to kind of document how to get it up and running on GCE a little bit faster. But in the meantime, if you want to get it up and running today, check out the mailing list, because between the release notes and what I asked, that should get you up and running. It's pretty fast. Marco and I compared launching instances on GCE versus AWS in AWS OS 2. And mine launched in 4 minutes 28 seconds, and I think yours was 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Something like that. Yeah, they're pretty close. So
that was just in creation of instance. There are some differences in the actual performance of the machine themselves, which is interesting, and we'll be looking to kind of benchmark them and see which one does what.
Yep. We just haven't gotten to that point yet. The big one, of course, is.
Did you guys notice that the bigger the instance you have, the faster it spins up? Because that's sort of typical with AWS.
Really?
Well, I need to go like quantify that, but in general, I think that's true.
We were just using
good.
the standards from Juju, so this would be a M3.medium on Amazon and an N1.standard on Google Compute Engine, which are, from a resource consumption standpoint, they are both the same from what you get, 3.75 gigs of RAM and 1 core CPU power. But that'd be interesting to find out that's the case. I didn't even think of comparing that.
So the jury's still out as to which one will perform. We should have, during the benchmarking session, we should have actually just fired off a Cassandra one on each one.
Yeah, shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Maybe next time.
That would have been.
Luckily,
that's great.
Relatable.
Great for UOS. Next UOS.
Yeah. So other things, the latest stable Juju 1.23.2 has been released. We covered this in a special session earlier in the week where we kind of went through all of the features that you get with the newest version of Juju. So I certainly invite everyone to check that out. Do you guys have any comments now that everyone's been upgraded? I hope. So now everyone should be on the same version of Juju except for Marco, who's always building from trunk every day. But any comments you guys would like to share as far as the new stable release? Seems to be working just fine for me. I don't really have any issues that jump out at me. I mean,
no, it's great. I actually was using it up until 10 minutes ago for this demo, so I don't always compile from trunk. Sheesh.
Yeah, just most of the time.
You can use JujuBox for that, you know.
Yeah. Ooh, that'd be something to get. While Marco starts doing the new features, Why don't you? One of you guys show the JujuBox, because that's really handy to show people.
I'd love to. Screen sharing does not work on my Chromium browser for some reason. So.
Well, I'm going to steal the Limelight anyways, because I just got this deployed.
It's got to work.
Yeah. So you go, hey, Chuck, why don't you get a JujuBox or Adam ready in the background so you have something to talk about.
Actually, Adam or Corey showing their Charmbox stuff, which it would probably be pretty interesting.
Okay, cool. All right. We'll go after Marco. Marco, you go first.
So one of the coolest things that are coming in 124 is the ability to set status for your workload and to see what the actual agent on the machine is doing. So with this, you actually have the previous agent state key, which will be there for backwards compatibility purposes. So that'll go through the standard allocating, pending, installing, started states. But that's boring and uninformative of actually what's going on. What you have now in addition is workload status and agent status keys. So agent status will show you if you're actually running something or not. So it'll say whether it's idle or whether it's actually doing something. This is better viewed. It's a tabular format, but it's kind of hard to see because there's a million and one things in this output. But if you look at the unit section here, you'll see that we have a workload state unknown and an agent state allocating. So once this goes through, and the message, of course, which is super helpful, is waiting for the agent to initialization to finish. So you know that Juju is in the process of bootstrapping this machine. What's great is that when this comes up, we'll actually be able to set the workload state from a charm. So I'll show you what that looks like while this figures out what it's doing. So I have an all the things charm, which does really nothing exciting. But in the install hook, I run a status set, and I say that the state is waiting, and it's just installing a ton of stuff. So this is a way for you to feed back to the user that, oh, I'm doing something, and this is what I'm doing. You can also do things like transition into a started state. So you can say, I'm done, everything's ready to go, here's a URL to visit the web page. There are several states you can model. You can model a maintenance, a blocked, a waiting, or an active states. And this is going to fail miserably now. Terrible demo. This should be this. Pretend like I did that. So with things like blocked, you can say, hey, I'm the MediaWiki service, and I need a MySQL-like database. I can't continue until you add a relation. So this is a feedback mechanism for you to actually illuminate to the user what they need to do or what's going on with their workload. So I'm still waiting for the agents. This would be the case where I try to demo something and it just doesn't want to cooperate today. It looks like we have an instance though. So it's really cool to watch the things go from agent state idle to agent state busy, workload state from unknown um, to a busy state to a maintenance state to all these different states. As a charm author, you can now illuminate that in a very simple and concise way. So the observability for this becomes very high. So it says the agent state is now idle. The workload state's in error. It went so quickly. Oh, the install hook failed. So, fudge. Double fudge. This has come into an impromptu debugging session. Anyways, terrible demos aside, this is something that's really cool coming out in 124 that I think a lot of people will be interested in. Oh, double fudge. This should definitely be sleep. A much more compelling demo. And I'm just going to real quickly yeah. So if we do this again, now it's waiting, installing a ton of stuff. So you get messages. The agent state is executing. It's no longer idle. So this was a lot of things that we had a lot of feedback. Is I don't know from the status output when my machines are actually done doing stuff, done processing hooks, and I have no idea what's going on in the covers. We've taken that feedback to heart, and the core team has done a great job of modeling this in 124 release, which will be coming out relatively soon. We have Alpha 1 already hit the PPA. You can get it from the Develop PPA. There's a bunch of instructions. A lot of features. This is one of them that'll be landing. Other things like leader elections, such will also be in this release. But that's all I had for this agent state demo. So we can.
I was gonna add on a little bit there. We mentioned this yesterday when we were talking about the services framework. But if any of y'all have worked with the services framework does a bunch of things to kind of say, hey, we don't want to do anything until we've got this type of relationship set up and finished. And that can actually be kind of hard to tell what's going on. These new statuses will make it easier to develop that and easier as a deployer to understand what's happening when you're using something like the services framework where it's actually blocking on certain information or waiting for certain information before the service is actually fully functional, which I think is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it's super powerful. And again, we can see that it finished doing its install. It's moved to the started hook, so went through configuration. The workload state is active, the agent's idle, and the message is ready to roll. So this could be a number of things. It could be now blocked at this point. There could be other things that are going on. But the ability, the observability this provides from an operator standpoint is quite vital on what to do next. So use the charm author can have that communication mechanism to either an admin or an operator of the cloud using Juju, or to a set of scripts that are actually consuming Juju and driving it, whether it be autopilot or the services framework or other such things.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
I mean, it's all right.
If you're into that kind of thing, right?
if you like having observability in your cloud. So that's the set status, and I guess I could show a couple other things going forward. But the Charm Box and Juju Box are also very interesting for those who want to try these features out, but don't want to dive into the mess of having to install a Golang compiler and then figure out what all these build errors are, and then suddenly learn what panicking is. So we definitely, I mean, do we have a way to solve that for people who are trying to use Juju?
We do. We do. Some people have called Docker the Millennium Falcon because it allows you to slide things onto a machine that you wouldn't necessarily get on there easily. This is also, not only is it great for trying out new features, it's also great for, most of the people watching this are going to be using Ubuntu, but if for some reason you happen to be on a CentOS machine or a Red Hat machine, you could use Docker and actually get Juju goodness. Um, so Corey, do you have do you have a setup where you could demo this?
I am setting one up right now. If you give me just a second.
Awesome. Sure. I'll kind of give the pre-word. So the idea behind JujuBox and CharmBox is it is an install of the basic tools that you need to kind of use Juju. JujuBox is very stripped down. It just gives you Juju Quick Start and the Juju client. And this allows you to basically do deployments. You'd set up some credentials. You can mount your Juju Home locally, or if you want to make a copy of Juju Home and mount that. So you can use the credentials you already have if you already have environment files set up. And that's about it. So then CharmBox builds on top of that and gives you a bunch of basic tools that you might need as a Charm developer, or for whether you want to review other people's charms and run the tests, or whether you're actually developing charms on your own. I don't know, Adam, both Adam and Corey have done a bunch of work. I kind of started this project, and they've actually taken it and turned it into something really cool. So I'm going to kind of hand it off to them as to what features they think you should take a look at.
Adam, did you have something you want to add?
Well, all I was going to say is the sandboxing is really nice for spinning up a virtual environment very quickly to do some work that is iterative. So you can do some work, you can tear it down, and then start back over. One of the things that I've been trying to get working is the LXC provider and then LXD running inside of a Docker container, which gives you even more levels of inception to run containers within your containers within your containers. But the end goal of that is to make the development process much smoother, less waiting on things to stand up, more time actually testing and writing code.
That's right. It's a very quick, if you already have a Docker daemon running, these start up as fast as process. So this is a lot quicker than, say, spinning up a box using VirtualBox or Vagrant or something like that. Anybody, how's the demo coming? Corey?
Okay, I just got just about done. Let me just oops. Share my screen here. Okay. You guys seeing that? Probably need to make it larger, huh?
That's pretty good.
There we go. Okay, so I'll show off the trunk build that Adam created first, just because I think that's really awesome. So if I do Juju version here on my host machine, you can see that I'm running stable. But with this relatively simple command, the Juju Home mounted to .juju in the Docker image, and running the image that Adam has set up to build daily, I believe. Is that right? And just by running that simple command, it will start you off with a Docker box, and you can see it's onto nightly build. It's onto the nightly trunk of Juju, so you can test out all the new features from within this. There is a little bit of difficulty using this with the local provider because of some networking constraints. I'll go into more detail on that for the review for the charm box, which is primarily useful for doing charm reviews. But in this case, you probably will need to bootstrap onto a remote environment to leverage the trunk build. So I'm not going to show bootstrapping on that, but the other one that you can run is with the same command, just changing out the Docker image, John CA Charmbox, and I'll add both of these to the IRC here in a minute. Not able to see the screen share. Are you guys still not?
Yeah, George, the video is currently trained on my face, which is lovely
Yeah,
for
I've got
everyone
it.
watching.
I've got it. Sorry. There.
Okay. Hopefully that's better and actually showing you. Let me go back into the. I'll put these commands in IRC real quick. And this one. I suppose I should point to the repositories as well. Charmbox is here, and Adam's Juju trunk is here. Both places have the more detailed instructions. So the idea is you run the Docker image, Adam Juju trunk, and you can get, as I showed a minute ago, Juju version, which is the trunk build versus the Juju version of my local machine, which is back unstable. So it's very easy to switch to the unstable, nightly build with that and test out the new features. Although, as I mentioned, bootstrapping local provider doesn't work. However, what you can do with the Charmbox, this Juju version uses. Oh, we need to. Okay, so that's something I'm gonna have to get fixed. Is get that updated with the new stable. So you can bootstrap your AWS from in here, or whatever other remote provider. But if you want to use local provider, you have to switch local. You will have to bootstrap it outside of the environment or outside of the Docker container. And once that comes up, I can do. I should have done this in the other window.
I mean, if you launch the Docker container with the proper network settings, it should work
Right.
once it comes up. Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah. So the only thing that you have to add to get it to work with the local provider is add --net equals host, and that will give you access to be able to see. Well, it's not up yet, but so that you can't bootstrap with that setting, but you can use an externally bootstrapped local provider, which is fantastic for doing. So now you can see that it can access the local provider even though it can't bootstrap it. So that's fantastic for doing reviews of charms or doing local development if you want to switch over to the newer version. The only thing that you can run up against is if you're using the trunk version of the Docker box or the Juju box, it will you may not be able to use some features if they require bootstrapping the local provider using the new Juju version. So
That's right.
does that roughly cover what?
Yeah. So, and I think just one thing that we run into a lot in reviewing charms, and this would be true for anybody who's kind of looking at using a charm, you're going to download it, and you're going to want to run the tests. And the way the common idiom for writing the test usually puts a lot of install corrupt in the tests themselves. And so that's something that's really nice to avoid if you don't want to pollute your own system. So if you're just kind of like wanting to run the test on charm, see how it works, see how well it's been engineered, it's really nice to do that in isolation. And so Charmbox makes that really easy.
One thing I didn't mention on this is the charm box, as Whit had mentioned earlier, comes with quite a few of the review and testing type tools already built into it, whereas the standard or the trunk build of the Juju box doesn't. So the charm box is specifically designed to enable or make it easier to do review queue and or testing of your charms.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Corey, for demoing that for us.
No problem.
So this is actually great, and if you noticed, I just installed the latest alpha today, which is 124 alpha 1. The trunk box gets you 125 alpha 1, which is a pre-released alpha of the next version of Juju, so you can really start demoing even like the bleeding tip of trunk just by using these boxes. A couple of caveats though is that if you're using these with clouds other than local provider, you will have to either use something like Juju Bootstrap with upload tools or the upload tools flag, or if you're using one of the alpha pre-release versions, you'll have to set an agent stream to either devel or proposed, depending. And there's documentation docs about which one you'll want to use. But if you're using the Juju trunk box, in order to get the work properly, you'll have to use Juju Bootstrap with the upload tools flag. That's one of the only caveats. Otherwise, it's a very quick and sane way, despite how fast it is to compile Golang code. Having the box with the pre-compiled version nightly is very nice for testing the bleeding edge of Juju.
I bet you probably wish you would have remembered the box, though, instead of upgrading to the unstable PPA. But that's just me.
Yeah. Old habits die hard, right?
Yeah.
So. All right. Where do we go from here?
Well, we could talk
see
about
if we have any questions.
leader election.
Yeah. Absolutely. Why not?
I don't see any questions yet, but yeah, feel free to ask them in the channel, people.
Yeah, start leader election because I'm going to mess with this.
Well, before we jump into that, I mean, we mentioned this in the container session earlier, but it's worth mentioning here too, just as sort of a general thing that we landed the Kubernetes bundle, which is their two Kubernetes charms, Kubernetes Master and the Kubernetes Minion, have actually landed upstream as part of the Kubernetes source and the Google Computing Platform project. So you can actually check out that repository, set your environmental variable Kubernetes_provider, and then cd into the cluster directory and type in /kube-up.sh, and it will actually use either your current Juju environment if you have an environment set up, or it'll prompt you for credentials through Quick Start, and will deploy the entire Kubernetes bundle. This is sort of the idiom that they're using there for doing cluster management. We're pretty excited to be part of that project and have that kind of available to anybody who wants to try Juju and Kubernetes. I don't know. Matt might have more to say to that. He did a lot of the work on it, and it turned out really well.
I think you covered it, Whit. We're just happy to be upstream and deploying the way that you would deploy a Kubernetes cluster. So that's pretty much it. If there's any questions, please reach out to Bruzek and Pound Juju, or I'm even hanging out in the Google Tech Containers room in Freenode. So feel free to ask me a question there if there's something that comes up.
Yeah, give us a holler. We'd love to hear what you think of it, how it works for you. It builds on top of our Docker charm itself, and we think that there's actually a lot of interesting stuff that we want to see what you want to do with it. We'd love to have your contributions. We think there's a lot of interesting things you can do with actions and these charms and compositions of charms. That's all I have on that. So if you guys want to get a leader election, go for it.
Cool.
We elect you the leader. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No!
Hopefully everyone can see my screen again. All I'm going to use the same deployment I was using earlier. I had this all the things charm, which I tried to hack as a bunch of things that you want to model in Juju. So in here we can see a couple of extra hooks that you may not have noticed before. The two main ones is leader minus elected and leader minus settings minus changed. Leader election in Juju is pretty cool. It's pretty unique. Juju will, on deployment, select one of the units from the available service pool as a leader, and it will basically emit the leader elected hook event. I'm not quite sure if it's emitted to everybody in the peer group or just the one that was elected. I still need to look into that, and I think we will find out very soon. So what I've done is I've fixed all those little minor paper cuts that came into the charm. I upgraded and repped the charm, so we're now on all the things version 2, which won't fail if I scale it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale the charm. So Juju add unit all the things. So this will bring us up another unit of all the things. But while it's doing that, I want to walk through the debug log from that unit. You can kind of see how it worked through everything. So I've got an unknown states. It's allocating the machine just like before. Some messages pop up. That's fantastic. I'm going to go back in time a little bit. Where are the status actually? Should go all the way back up in time. So what was interesting is in the debug log. Oh, come on. What? A whole bunch of stuff happened, but the interesting things are happening around here where you see that there was a leadership event emitted, and it says making initial claim for all the things leadership, and then checking all the things 0 for all the things leadership, and then what it does is actually it elected a leader here, that it actually ran the command leader minus elected, and there were some bugs in that caused it to fail. But at the end of the day, it says, who is the leader? Is it me? True. That's actually inside the leader elected event. And then from there, it actually allows you, it'll actually go and set settings for the leader. So what's great about leader election is not only can you find a leader inside of a group of units, but that leader can actually set configuration that's a read-only bucket for everyone else in the deployment, but that leader is the one who's able to set it. So if you want to disperse or submit settings, like if you ever want to change configuration for a unit, this is the way you would do it. Change configuration for a unit in an automated fashion. You can actually have the leader set these configuration options, which would then be available to all of the other units in that relation bucket, and they'll be able to read those settings, and there is a corresponding leader settings change. So whenever you actually run leader sets, which we'll see here in the leader election hook, all the things, hooks, leader, elected. So here he simply says, who's the leader? It's me, the units. And he prints out is leader, which prints true. If is leader, then run leader set hey equals yo. So that key hey will be available to all of those services, and they will all get a leader settings changed command, which will, in this demonstration, simply run leader get with the format JSON output. So we should see in the log a JSON dump of hey equals yo. Very compelling messages, I know. So let's just take a look at what's going on. And I don't want to block too much time. If it's not ready, we're getting to another situation where it's taking forever to set up, then we'll just go ahead and skip around. But having this as something you can model is very powerful for those who need to do things like managing a pool or cluster of peers. You can start doing a little more sanity checking and a little better job of driving quorum throughout the units by having Juju help select that leader for you. The more the model does for this, the easier it is to write these kind of complex systems in Juju.
Well, you can also, a lot of times with a service, you may have multiple units, but you have an action that you just need to be taken on just one of the units, or just a certain number of the units. And this actually allows you to restrict that without having to spend a lot of time sending information over peer relationships to determine whether an action's been taken, like whether something has been executed or not. Things that you would think about that might use this is like if you were scaling out some sort of data resource and you wanted to do replications or backup, you'd want to be very careful about how these things happened and the order that they happened in. So leader election gives you a way to sort of order these operations in a safe and consistent way without having to use a whole lot of back and forth code that you used to see being used in peer relationships.
Yeah, exactly the point, which is why it's very exciting to see this kind of feature land. I'm looking forward to a lot of the charms being updated to use this kind of logic instead of the stuff that was going on before.
A little lookup too. The elected is scoped only to the unit that is actually elected, so that's the only place that gets called.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. So this won't get a leader elected run on it since it's already been elected, but it will get a settings change since we did change settings along the way. While we're going through all of this fun stuff, a new command that we have that is not that. A new command that we have that wasn't there previously is actually Juju status history. This is awesome, and it actually allows you to. Oh, please don't do that to me. I want to see it for everything.
Can you do -- service?
No, I gotta do it for a unit. Whatever, that's fine. I'll play your game. File a bug later. So if I want to see what happened during all the things service life, you get a date timestamp output, the type of event, the status that happened, and the message. So the agent executed the install hook, the agent errored, install hook failed. I resolved it, which doesn't show up in here, but then we go the workload went into a maintenance mode, the agent executed the install hook, the workload was waiting with this message, the agent errored again, my bad. Workload went to maintenance mode again, the agent executed, yada, 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 so far and so forth. So you can see that it came through and it executed all of these things, leader elected. So we actually can see, actually this is awesome. That's not that awesome though. My screen's a little too small for that. Let's do it this way. So we can actually compare what actually ran between each of those units, Juju, status, history, all the things one. And we can see that leader elected never actually run, but the leader status changed, leader settings change hook was executed since we set those settings here. So it's kind of cool to see that you can. One of the problems that we've seen people a lot is I don't understand the workflow of what my units go through. And it's a very tough question to answer, and we've done a fairly subpar job of documenting. But with this status history, you can actually see the events that occur within the service lifecycle of these charms, and you can kind of see where things are being missed, which hooks are not being run, or which events aren't being modeled properly. We'll be looking to heavily lean on this stuff going forward. 124 comes out with our testing infrastructure tool to detect that you have these several hooks, but they didn't actually run during your testing, so you don't have as good a coverage as you could if you were executing all of the events you modeled. So we're looking forward to that kind of stuff in the future releases. And this status history is a great tool in general. So I just wanted to show everyone this in addition to the leader election stuff.
Can the status history also support output format YAML or JSON?
That's a great question, and for that I will refer to the handy Juju help tool.
Thank you.
So I know that if you pipe it to a text file, you'll get a slightly different output.
Okay.
But it doesn't look like it supports a format flag as of yet. But this is coming in 124, so this is the alpha 1 of 124. So if that's something you're very interested in, and it sounds like you are with it, you'll probably want to tap them and let them know that a YAML output would be good.
I mean, this stuff is really good because the cloud is a very uncertain place, and I think that information like this, would very much facilitate the kinds of tooling that you might want to make on top of Juju, say for something like an autopilot, or say you have a system where you're using Juju and you want to build kind of like an orchestration layer on top of that to make various things happen. Because you could say, I see these things are working, I see these things are not working, I want to remove that machine, I want to add that machine. So it looks like it'd be awesome for that kind of automation.
Yeah, totally. Anyone who's building tooling on top of Juju, this kind of stuff would be great for that kind of observability into the environment, allow you to build slightly more robust logic around, well, these are corner cases that are happening and identifying those. I completely agree for anyone modeling that kind of business logic, for sure.
Cool.
But yeah, that's all I have for the leader election demo. There are a bunch of other really cool features coming in 24, things like networking and addressability and storage and such. We don't have all the time in the world to go through it for this session, but I think in future QAs we may take a few moments to highlight a new feature coming in 124 up to its release. That way people can get a little more visibility on it as we kind of find out about them. And so, yeah, I think that's all I have to show for you guys. Is there any questions asked during my long rambling session?
Yep, we got one here. Sorry if I missed it, but what happens if you have a net split outage? Could you have 2 leaders elected and split? And if so, what happens when you have a join recovery? I don't know if you guys answered that one already.
No, that's a great question,
Okay.
though. Yeah, go ahead, Whit.
I mean, I can try. Do you have an answer for this, Marco, or I can try that?
Do have an answer.
Okay, I'd like to hear your answer.
Well, I have an answer of a strong assumption of what happens. So,
yeah.
Juju has a pretty good idea of what's happening from a unit standpoint. It's actually watching your cloud. So it's not that each agent that's running on each machine is actually deciding who the leader is. It's Juju from the Bootstrap node's perspective electing a leader. So if a machine hasn't come online and registered itself yet with Juju, or it blinks out, Juju's able to know that there was a machine there, and it won't try to assign to a machine that maybe wasn't there, and it'll instead pick a unit that it knows is healthy. If a unit was a leader and it blinks out for a moment, Juju will re-elect the leader for you, and the leader elected event will be omitted. So the leader can change during a deployment. That much I do know. So if you do happen to destroy the leader, if you do a normal remove unit or some other fashion, or it blinks out because of a net split issue, Juju will re-elect the leader. It has the ability to kind of monitor that process.
In between the actual units are not an issue, is actually the communication bus.
Right.
So that's, yeah. You know, what running Juju in high availability, and there's a split there, that I'm not sure actually how that works, but
that's actually
that would not have, you would not have communication at that point between the units and Juju itself until Juju resolved the partition, or you'd only be talking to one. That's my guess.
Yeah, and that's actually a great question. If you wanted to follow up more on that, I'm the word. Please feel free to start a conversation about that on the mailing list. It'd be nice to have some core developers weigh in on that issue. I'm sure things like net splits and units and networking blips and such are things that we're trying to make Juju more robust and aware about. So I'm sure they've taken into consideration some steps to avoid duplicate elections. I know you'll likely never get two leaders. You'll never get 2 leaders elected. I'm fairly confident of that. But there may be some delay in electing a leader until there's an idea of a more stable network connection, or you may actually get another leader elected if one blinks out.
Due to the nature of the fact that Juju sort of works as a state machine, that you're not going something that's a leader that loses communication with Juju is just going to kind of keep doing what it's doing until it regains communication with Juju. At which point Juju would be like, "You're no longer the leader." And I'd imagine that's how that would work. But again, yeah, it'd be nice to see some core devs speak to this.
Yeah, it mentions that's kind of a tough nut to crack there with that one. So.
Yeah, but fantastic question, though.
That is. Any other questions before we wrap it up? All right, with that, we're done for the day. I've been doing sessions for like I forgot. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your support and your help and your amount of energy. We got one more day. Let's just go over what we're going to do tomorrow. Make sure we're all on the same sheet of music. Let's see. So tomorrow is Thursday. Okay, we got that. So tomorrow, first thing in the morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, this is 1400 UTC. We'll go over some new charm author features, relation stubs, and composition. You guys feel confident about doing that one? That's probably Marco, Corey, maybe Ben. I get the feeling Ben's on like vacation for the next month.
It's also really early for him, so I might
Okay,
be able to
cool.
cover that.
And then we have two concurrent sessions. One's going to be writing your own Juju plugins. That's probably will be with Marco. And then I'll be doing a session at the same time called Giving Charm Authors Free Cloud Credit, where I have a cool little surprise for you people who want to develop charms and want to do it on the cloud for free.
Woohoo!
Awesome. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's going to be awesome. Then at the session after that, we have two cloud sessions again. We have a canonical landscape demonstration, so the landscape guys are going to show you the latest features in landscape. Remember, if you're using this at home for personal use, you get 20 licenses, 10 for physical hosts and 10 for containers. So if you're like me and you've got Ubuntu machines around your house, landscape is just a really, really awesome way to ensure that they're always up to date with zero effort almost on my part. At the same time, we'll be doing OpenStack Charm integrated functional testing and development cycle. So if you care about OpenStack, that is the session to go to. Then we'll break for lunch, and then the OpenStack guys will finish it off with OpenStack Kilo updates and roadmap, so those last two sessions, if you care about OpenStack and the cloud on Ubuntu, you should definitely check that out as we are closing in on the OpenStack Development Summit here soon in Vancouver in a few days. So with that, thanks everyone, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Thank you, George.
Well, thank you, Whit.
Way to soldier through.
Hey, take it seriously.
Hey.